So I think even today, as big as Nike is with over 60,000 employees, the key thing is people. So when you're starting out, obviously, getting the right people, that's life and death. And then not only the right people, but getting them to work together and work for a common purpose. I've always said 2 9s working together will beat 2 10s working apart any day. Well, first of all, you're right that the odds of success are not high. When I graduated from business school, the stats were that 26 out of every 27 new businesses fail, and I think the odds might be worse now. You know, there's two elements, obviously, to what happened. Is I think it shows quite clearly in the book. It's a whole lot of hard work and some good luck. The belief in the product and the belief of where the company could go, but more than anything, it was a belief in each other. So I think even today, as big as Nike is with over 60,000 employees, the key thing is people. So when you're starting out, obviously, getting the right people, that's life and death. And then not only the right people, but getting them to work together and work for a common purpose. I've always said 2 9s working together will beat 2 10s working apart any day. Well, pick the right people is number one, and then giving them the environment and maybe a little bit of leadership that allows them to keep doing that. And there's all kinds of different management styles that and you have to kind of recognize that each person is an individual. So there's, but I always liked Sparky Anderson, the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. He says, do you treat all players the same? Hell no. He says, if Johnny Bench wants a day off, he gets it off. If a rookie wants a day off, I said, get your ass out on the field. And I think that's a good management principle by itself. I was the one that was getting out on the field without a day off. Well, I had the theory that I'd written the paper for at Stanford Business School that Japanese track shoes should be able to compete in the international market, which was being dominated by German shoes, why would you make them in Germany? And so when I went to Japan, I went in the sporting goods store, and the Onitsuka company had made a shoe called, the brand called Tiger, which seemed to have the most promise. So I called them up, and they said, come on out. And it was, and here I was 24 years old and real shy. And I got to go sell them on exporting some shoes to me. And so they walk through the accounting department before you get to the conference room, and there were 20 Japanese people in the accounting department, and they all stood up and bowed. And I thought, oh boy, they think I'm a big shot. And yeah, and I had my one suit and tie on. But I went in there, and when we started talking shoes, I got real interested because they were passionate about shoes. And they had thought about selling shoes in the United States, but hadn't done so yet. But they'd had some samples that showed some promise, and that's when I put in an order for a dozen pair of samples, which ultimately some of them found their way to Bowerman. Yes, that we ultimately got rights for the whole U.S. and got the sales up to $2 million. But when they got that high, we got noticed by a lot of distributors. And the sales system was different than it is now. There's no such thing as a wholesale distributor, but in those days there were, and they're always looking for lines. And they would send letters out to Japan saying, if this 2 Bits in the Woods outfit can do $2 million, we can do lots more. So ultimately they said, yeah, you either sell half your company, 51% of your company to us, or we're going to set up the other distributors. I didn't like it, but in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Because then you get to start the company on your own.
Had to do our own line, yeah. We were relying on banks, and the banks, you had to put the money up before you could import the shoes, so you were kind of a reverse leverage situation. It's the opposite of buying a house where you can live in the house before it's paid for. So the banks had to loan us the money to get the shoes in, and they became apprehensive about their collateral was track shoes, and what if they have to collect? They're going to pile them up in the lobby of the bank. And so it was difficult getting financing, and it was very important that we make profit every year, and so they would give us a little more loan each year, which they did. And that was the process. And we pushed the envelope pretty hard since we got kicked out of 2 banks for being too aggressive. But ultimately, a Japanese trading company, Nissho Iwai, they were not bound by really kind of the same rules that U.S. banks were. They could charge more interest, and that was fine with us. We were interested in volume. And so we got hooked up with them, and that really allowed us to grow fast. It was kind of like almost a constant high, because every day you went to work, you knew it mattered. And it's the same with those other 4 people. They were bent the same way. Even the CFO. And we would go for these offsite meetings because every 6 months the business would change a lot. We were growing fast from a low base. And so we'd have to adjust our plans. You'd have a year plan. Something was going better and something was going worse in the course of 6 months. So we would work hard for an hour on how we were going to take over become #1 in the United States, and the next hour we'd work hard on how we're going to meet payroll on Monday morning. And in retrospect, though, as I point out in the book, that was a very, very healthy process. And because basically when you got through about 5 years of this process, as a professor from Harvard Business School said, it's very, very unique to have one person in the room that thinks tactically and strategically at the same time. He says, you got 8 guys in there think that way. And it was a special team. And that was one of the reasons. I wanted, people in the sneaker business know Phil Knight. They don't know those other 4 people, and they should. Well, I think, and that's why I end the book going public. I think that was the moment, and as I think I use a sentence in there, that's the moment when we realized the only thing standing between success and us is ourselves. That the obstacles were really cleared aside when we went public and had the trading company alongside. That now there was really nothing to stop us. It was only our own management that could stop us. The most important thing is there's 2 sides. There's really sort of the intellectual or mental side. You have to pick a business that has a niche. You have to have a reason to succeed. You have to be something like we were doing, say, Japan can beat Germany in manufacturing of this type of a product. That was the niche, really. And then on that, you just have to have a total and complete passion, because there's going to be so many dark moments. I think the dark moments are true for any entrepreneur, any startup company. I'm sure that you talk to Steve Jobs and Apple, you'd see many, many dark moments. Ours happen to last a little longer than most of them, but you really emotionally have to be prepared for those dark moments. That's the life of an entrepreneur. And so you're going to be into it, you better be prepared for that. And when I took the entrepreneurship class, professor said the first day, he says, we have conferences here for all types of business people. He says, we have middle management from big companies, and we have entrepreneurs. He says, the big companies, the middle managers, when they break for lunch, they all go off together and talk and socialize and talk about their business. Entrepreneurs go to lunch, they all go off by themselves. That's me. I'm sad to say I agree with you on kind of what's going on in the United States, and I don't think it's healthy. I do think, but I think particularly the current popular view about international trade is completely wrong, and if taken to an extreme, or I suppose long enough to its logical ends, it would be very, very detrimental to the economy in the United States and the economy of the world. The flip side is that, as they say in statistics, everything has a cycle, even the sex life of a flea. And I choose to think this is, just a cycle. It's a downward cycle when businesses look down on and people are angry. But I don't think it's a long-term trend. I think it's a cycle and we'll come out of it. And I do think the kids coming out of university in general and the business schools in particular are more able than they've ever been. The venture capital companies are there. And I think down the road we'll see a rebound in that type of thinking.